Hello! So, it has been heaven in Devon again today, so I thought I would try doing this video outside. Still waiting for the rain that doesn't seem to come, but we live in hope. So, I thought that I would move forward from my video explaining a little bit about my mental health issues with anorexia and sort of show the other side of it, the coming out of it, which is the most important part. It's the showing that there is hope for everybody dealing with problems like this, that there is a way to get through it. And for me, the hope comes through moving forward from making the best of it. When I say I will always have anorexia, I don't mean that I will always struggle to eat food. What I mean is that I will always have to live with the regrets of what happened during that time and how I acted whilst I was under the influence of a lack of food. I did a lot of things that I regret for me and also a lot of things to others. You mean how my social life was impacted and how my relationships were acted. I lost a lot of things during that time, and moving forward I have to let that go. The problem with anorexia is that it isn't a decision. I didn't wake up one day and go, I'm not going to eat anymore, not worth it. It was a gradual thing that, to start with, I don't think even I realised what was happening. And I think that is why they are silent killers, is because it happens in a way that makes it very hard to notice, whether it's yourself or the people around you. And what's also important to remember is that the recovery is just as gradual and just as painful and just as hard, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. And it's finding that reason that it's worth it that is the hardest part. You know, to start with, so many people tried to help me, and I couldn't accept that help because I wasn't ready to accept it myself. But once I did accept it, it was like a liberation, although it wasn't straightforward and it wasn't easy, because it sounds so ridiculous. You spent all of this time starving yourself and you make this decision, yeah, I'm going to eat now. I've got something to live for and I'm going to make it happen. But you can't just go and eat a socking great steak, because the irony is, if you did that, you'd end up doing exactly the same thing that not eating was going to do. You'd end up killing yourself because your organs can't take the digestion of that food. And so it is not straightforward, and it has to be gradual. And each day is a massive great boulder being rolled up that hill. But each day you get to the top of that hill because you've eaten, and that is the best thing about it. But the problem is that even when you make that decision that you're going to do this, and you start to recover in your body, you then are confronted with the wave of the other things that you've lost, such as your social life. And so you're recovering in terms of you're adapting to this mental ability to not hate yourself and to be comfortable in this new body of yours, and also trying to rebuild a social life that you've destroyed and that some people necessarily haven't noticed, because even a lot of my friends didn't notice because I hid it from them. Yes, they could see that I had lost weight, but to some extent I could cover that up with excuses. And so you've got this guilt and frustration coming at you in two waves. You've got one side being the actual eating, and you've got the other side realizing what you've lost. And so I have learnt that actually talking about the anorexia and almost joking about it, not in a horrible way, but being open about it, puts people around me at ease, and so therefore it creates an open conversation that I can explain to people sort of what happened, and they can be more comfortable around me. And that is how I've learnt to rebuild that social life that has become so important, because we need support from other people. And when you're ill and those people are trying to offer you support, but you don't want to accept the fact that you have anorexia, you push them away because it's the easier thing to do. You know, you can tell yourself in your brain, they're wrong, they're just they don't understand. And so you push them away because you don't want people questioning you. And so then having to admit that you were wrong and go back to them and say, look, I'm sorry, I need that help is very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of strength. But that is something that is so important. And then, so you're doing that at the same time, but you've got to learn to shut out those awful, awful thoughts that are going on in your head telling you you don't deserve that piece of food, you're not worth that piece of food. Well, you have to find a way to shut them up. You have to learn what you can do in your own head to recognize those and to put them to bed. Do you mean to tell them to shove off? And for me, it was appreciating my food, thinking to myself that, gosh, there are thousands of people in this world that would be so grateful for this meal, and so I'm going to eat it, not just for myself, but for them. And that was one of the major factors that helped me. And for everyone it would be different, but you have to find a reason that you are worth eating that food, because there is a reason. You're a living, breathing person, therefore there is a worth to your life. You are put on this world, in this world, to do something great, and even just through taking that bite of food, you are doing that because you're fighting all of those awful thoughts that are trying to put you down. And so in that respect, I chose happiness because I chose not to let the guilt and the regret overcome me. I didn't want it to bog me down, which is so easy. I mean, it was so hard. Some days you've got the aspect of, I want to do this, but you're being confronted with all of the realization of how awful you've acted, and sometimes that becomes too much. And so there were days, even a year or so down the line, when I didn't want to eat, purely because I just couldn't take the pain anymore. I couldn't take the realization of what I'd done, and I also couldn't take the fact of what I was becoming, because I was eating again, and those thoughts were still there telling me it was wrong. And I was so tired of fighting two forms of anger, the hatred for eating and the hatred for not eating. But by fighting off both of them, I have now become what I am today, and for that I'm so grateful. If I could go back and tell that person 2 or 3 years ago what I am now, oh my God, I'd have never even started. But that's always the thing. I mean, it's always the what if. Looking back in retrospective is always easier. And so it was an acceptance that I was going to have those bad days, but that just because I'd had one bad day doesn't mean every day was going to be bad. You know what I mean? I'd say, right, okay, I've had a bad day today, but tomorrow's going to be better. I'm going to make tomorrow better because I have the determination that I am worth it. I am worth that food. And so through doing that, I was able to get over the regret, and I didn't let myself dwell on it. That was the hardest part. And I think in a way, being honest, that regret is worse than living with the anorexia. Realizing what you did is something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. And it is so easy to let that overcome you. And even now, still, I have days where I look back and I wish I hadn't said that, or I hadn't acted like that, or that I wish that something had happened that it didn't because I was too ill. But there is no point. It's in the past. There is no point getting upset about it. All you have to do is decide that today is the day you make up for what you lost back then. And that is how each day I got up and I ate that extra bit of food. That was it. It was the decision. And even now, people will still question whether I'm fully recovered. And again, that is a very hard thing that I will have to live with for the rest of my life. And I've accepted that. I've accepted that because of my actions, people around me that love me have every right to sometimes question whether I'm slipping back down that route. And I used to get really upset and angry and frustrated and snap at them. But I have now come to realize that they have every right to do that, and they're only doing it because they love me. And so even when Mum goes, oh, I think you've lost some weight, I now, instead of snapping back at her and going, no, I didn't, I'm fine, I go, it's okay, yeah, taken on board, I'll look at what I'm eating, because I've realised that she's only doing it because she loves me. And so I have turned that around into a positive, and that is the most important thing to do, is to find a positive from every situation and use that and channel it into your thoughts to shut out the awful ones that are still there and will still sometimes creep in. And so each day I get up and I thank the moon and the stars and everything around me that I have breath in my body and that I am a living being, because that is so much more than a lot of people have. And by breathing and living, I am proof that it is worth getting over anorexia. You are proof that it is worth being alive today. Everybody that is alive today has more than somebody else. And finding that appreciation is how you come through it. So I hope that was sort of a little bit helpful and enlightening, and I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that contacted me after my last video about anorexia. It was really uplifting and another brick in the wall that proves that getting over this was worth it. I will catch up with you guys soon. Enjoy the sunshine. Bye!